Hey everyone, welcome. So I've seen a ton of your questions about project budgeting, and I am so glad you're asking. Honestly, it's one of those spots on the CMA exam where it's really easy to get tripped up, and that can cost you some serious points. But don't you worry. Today, we are going to decode this thing, get it all straightened out, and make sure you walk into that exam ready for anything they throw at you.
Okay, let's dive right in and talk about the biggest, most common mistake I see students make. You've spent all this time mastering the annual master budget, which is fantastic, but then you get a question about, say, a 3-year project, and you try to apply all those same rules. It's such a classic trap. Projects just don't play by the same rules as our day-to-day operations. So for the next few minutes, I want you to completely forget about the annual calendar. Let's look at this from a totally new perspective.
I love this comparison because it just makes it so clear. Think about the master budget as your business-as-usual fund. It's what keeps the lights on, pays the salaries, year after year. But a project budget, that's for something special. It's a one-time adventure with a very clear beginning and a very clear end. Like building a brand new factory or developing that next killer app. They're just two completely different jobs.
So because projects have these unique start and end points, we have to adopt what's called a project lifecycle view. This just means we stop thinking in terms of fiscal years and start thinking about the project's entire journey, from the first spark of an idea all the way to the finish line.
Now here's a term you absolutely have to know for the exam: life cycle oriented. All this means is that the budget for a project covers its entire life. It doesn't care about January 1st or December 31st. If a project takes 30 months to complete, well, the budget is for 30 months. Simple as that. We're not chopping it up into little annual pieces.
And this here is a great picture of what that whole life cycle looks like. You see, pretty much every project moves through these 4 phases. First, there's initiation. That's the aha moment. Then comes planning, where you map out all the nitty-gritty details. After that is production, where all the work gets done. And finally, closing, when you hand over the keys, so to speak. Your project budget has to account for every single one of these stages.
Okay, so we get it, the budget covers the whole project. But how do we actually create one? How do we come up with the numbers? Well, for the CMA exam, there are really 2 main paths you need to understand.
On one hand, you have the top-down approach. This is basically when senior management just says, "You've got $1 million for this project, make it happen." It's super fast, which is great, but let's be real, it can be completely disconnected from the actual cost of the work. Then you've got the opposite, the bottom-up approach. This is where the project team sits down and painstakingly estimates the cost of every single little task and then adds them all up. It's way more accurate, but man, it can take forever.
So how can we make that super accurate bottom-up approach actually work without taking a year to plan? Now here is a major pro tip for your exam. It's called the Work Breakdown Structure, or WBS. The whole idea is to take a giant, scary project and break it down into small, manageable, bite-sized tasks. I have a simple rule I always teach. If you can't measure it, you can't budget for it. Remember that. It's gold.
Now, creating the budget, that's just step 1. You know this. As future CMAs, performance management is in your blood. A project budget is not a set-it-and-forget-it document that you just file away. No way. It's a living, breathing tool that you have to monitor constantly.
I mean, just imagine this situation. It's the kind of thing that gives project managers nightmares. You're halfway through the project's timeline, but you've already burned through 80% of the money. That's not just a small problem. That is a massive variance. It's a huge red flag that tells you something is seriously wrong and you need to act like yesterday.
And one of the biggest fill-ins behind that kind of budget disaster is something called scope creep. Oh, we've all seen this. It's when people keep adding just one more little thing to the project. Hey, while you're building the app, could you also make it do this? Those little things start to add up, and before you know it, they've completely blown up your budget and your deadline. Spotting and managing scope creep is a critical skill the exam will test you on. Whew, okay, we have covered a lot of ground. So let's take a breath and wrap this up with the most important takeaways. I really want to lock in these key differences so you can walk into that exam feeling totally prepared.
All right, you might want to screenshot this slide because this table is your perfect little study guide. Let's run through it quick. Time horizon, master budgets are fixed, almost always 1 year. Project budgets, totally flexible, they last for the life of the project. How about focus? Master budgets are all about departments, how much does marketing get? Project budgets are laser-focused on one specific goal or deliverable. And finally, the reset. Master budgets get a fresh start every single year.
A project budget is a one-and-done deal. It only ends when the project is complete.
And now for my last and maybe most important piece of advice. When you're sitting there in the exam and you read a question that mentions something like a multi-year construction contract or a long-term software development, I want a little bell to go off in your head. Ding! That is your signal. That's the exam telling you, think project budgeting, not master budgeting. You've totally got this. Now go crush that exam.